At Intuit, we believe you cannot have prosperity without equality. Women and people of color should not be paid less than men for the same work. 3 years ago, we made a commitment to reach and maintain pay equity for our employees. But pay equity is an ongoing process, and all companies must join this fight. Like the 19th Amendment, we are not done.
So obviously right now, so many businesses have been ravaged by COVID, but others are seeing a tailwind. And right now we're going to be talking to Maria Renz, the EVP at SoFi, responsible for the money, investing, and credit card products. Because SoFi, as the fintech leader that it is really having a very interesting moment right now. So before I turn over to Maria, just a little bit of background about SoFi. Really a pioneer in the fintech industry, almost a decade old. The business started in the student loan area and has really expanded with over 1 million members across many, many products. And I think personally, just a very exciting example of how technology can disrupt something as old school as banking. And Maria, who recently joined SoFi a few months ago, was previously VP at Amazon, one of the most senior women at the company, responsible for the global delivery experience. So everyone out there who relies on Amazon for quick delivery has Maria to thank. And I think Maria also has the distinction of being one of very few female technical advisors to Jeff Bezos, having worked very closely with him over the years. So Maria, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Jessica, and thanks to you and the team for just the creativity during this time to get us all together.
So I want to start with this time with the pandemic. Walk us through what you've seen at SoFi with regards to just demand for your products.
Sure. So I joined SoFi in March. I had 2 whole days in the office before everyone was sent home, and I've been here ever since. My role is leading Money, Invest, and Credit Card, and Money and Invest are about 18 months old. As with most things digital, the pandemic has only accelerated consumers' switch to digital and their desire for access 24/7 to their money. SoFi is an online personal finance company, and our mission really is to help our customers achieve financial independence and realize their ambitions. Within Money and Invest, we've seen both of those business just take off in a substantial way post-COVID. So for example, Invest, even before COVID, the structure of Invest, there are 2 consequential industry-wide changes that have taken place over the last year. First is the elimination of trading fees, and secondly is the introduction of fractional shares. I liken this to overnight, imagine every online retailer suddenly offered free shipping when they never had before and put every single item on their website for sale. Just a really big move towards democratization of investing for consumers. And then you add the pandemic and really low historic interest rates, and you see the segment just gain tremendous amount of momentum. So we've seen our brokerage accounts increase by 215% since the beginning of the year, and more than a third of trades being done are on fractional shares. So if you look at, for example, the purchases of whole shares of stock, you see names like Delta, American Airlines, and Ford, where the average price is about $38. Conversely, when you look at what names are being bought in a fractional way, you see Tesla, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, right, where the average price of those whole shares are over $1,200. And so clearly, this has invited a new class of investor into the market, and I think that's tremendously exciting. On the other side, on money, so far, our customers are millennials. They're 25 to 40 years old, typically young professionals early in their career. Millennials have always been a little bit leery of credit cards, but we see even more spending being switched to debit cards For example, grocery spend has gone up by 127%. We've seen, I'm a student of consumer behavior, and to me now to be able to see, consumer transactions across categories on a weekly basis has been particularly fascinating. Obviously, airline spend is down dramatically, as is rideshare, but then spending at gas stations is up 42%. So to see those shifts in spending have been super interesting. In addition, we see consumers saving more. So our members have increased their savings in vaults by 54% since the beginning of the year.
Those are fascinating stats. Yeah, all those RVs going back and forth across the country, right? Buying a lot of gas. One more question on this topic. I'm curious if you have any window into, what a recovery might look like just from the spending patterns. I mean, there's been a lot of talk of, I don't know if it's Z or K or L, or I've lost, which shape the recoveries are, but it's hard to look into a crystal ball, but just curious, does it feel like recent months have been different from last few months? Just any visibility there?
Well, we've definitely seen some spend moderate as of late. And you see this just in overall retail, right? So in August, kind of spend slowing down a bit in general. Consumers definitely are still very interested in spending in the home. You saw that in some earnings reports of late in Home Depot, and those categories that are directly impacting them spending time in their homes, and a real interest in making that a pleasant experience.
Yeah. A lot of electronics and
Yep.
But that's interesting. Yeah, people are maybe a little more cautious heading into the fall.
For sure.
You mentioned some of the sort of systemic changes that are buoyed the industry. Obviously, regulation affects all parts of the tech space, and certainly fintech. SoFi recently applied for a bank charter. Tell us a bit about the thinking behind that and why taking that step now.
Sure. Well, as I said, Money and Invest are about 18 months old. We've always been in the loans business. SoFi started in 2011 as a student loan refinancing company. We felt like we were ready to apply for a bank license because we had that suite of products to be a viable option for our members. At SoFi, we're really focused on members. It's one of the reasons why I chose to join the company, is that true focus on and customer obsession. I'd seen it play out in really meaningful ways at Amazon many times over 20 years there. And in talking with Anthony Noto at SoFi, it was again that focus on customers and how we build around them. And so we had gotten to the point where we felt we had the right combination of products, that we could be a really viable alternative for customers, and for us to apply for a bank license would enable us to deliver more on their behalf.
Mm-hmm. Does it, assuming it is accompanied by more regulation, like how do you think of the trade-offs of
Yeah, for me, regulation, my undergraduate degree is in interior design. So I see regulation as just a different set of design constraints, right? Like I've worked in many different sectors of retail across product categories. And, I'm super confident in technology's ability to innovate on behalf of customers. And I look at financial services, I see great opportunities there too. As I said, consumers today expect to be able to access their money from a single app, to be able to, apply for a loan or a mortgage, invest, save, spend within moments. And to me, the fact that it's regulated, it means the team needs to be more diligent. We potentially need more patience and certainly more creativity, but that ultimately the consumer will appreciate our work. If we are thoughtful, the consumer is waiting for that improvement.
Mm-hmm. I don't think I've ever heard interior design be compared to fintech regulation. So I love it. There's analogies everywhere. With it being such an important sector right now, financial technology, it does seem like everyone wants a piece of the action, right? The old school traditional banks are buying up startups left and right. You've got Apple with its credit cards. You've got Facebook with its cryptocurrency. Who knows what Amazon has planned? How do you see the competitive landscape, and how do you see it evolving? Are companies like SoFi going to compete to be one-stop shops, or will it be something different?
Well, I pay attention to the competition, obviously, but again, that's where, I'm listening more to consumers and members and what they're telling me. Fintech is a huge space. There's plenty of room for multiple companies to deliver on behalf of their customer. And so I love the amount of innovation that's going on right now. And I'm super confident that in the products that SoFi offers and the way that we connect with our members. For example, home loans, last quarter, 2/3 of the home loans were generated from existing SoFi members. And that just, to me, tells me that what we're doing really connects with our customer base, and that we have earned their trust in an important transaction like your mortgage.
Mm-hmm. When you think about how you want the memberships to evolve, you mentioned being mostly millennials. Is that the focus? If not, or how do you see sort of going, expanding to older people, non-millennials?
You mean like myself?
I'm on the edge, so I'll put myself.
Yeah, I think you have to connect. I think about this, when I started Amazon in '99, right? I was, in that kind of age cohort. And I remember my father asking me one day, he was going to try to buy a book on Amazon, and he asked me to print out the catalog for him, right? And just how that's evolved over time. And so I think you obviously, in general, I think most people look to that kind of age cohort that is in that, call it 20 to 40 age range today, as the best, potentially first step in product market fit. But as the technology expands, how do you obviously expand the envelope and address wider audiences and ensure that your product is viable across a range of consumers? And that's the goal with SoFi.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, even though COVID has put a stop on many things, we're seeing a lot of deal making, and SoFi had a pretty big acquisition of Galileo. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, we did. I am super excited about the combination of Galileo and SoFi. Galileo is a strong B2B SaaS provider within fintech, and they have a robust set and growing set of customers globally. And that is about the innovation on the back end of fintech, and how it's time to upgrade and modernize the offerings and all the power that the cloud can bring to transactions. What that means for me on the SoFi side of the house is it gives me better ability to innovate on behalf of customers. So, I'm focused on that member and what is a set of products. But by working with Galileo, if I can deliver greater convenience in making funds transfer instantly, in the mechanism of the product, then that to me is a fantastic, combination.
Awesome. And I should say, I think it was $1 billion acquisition. Did I get that right?
It was just over $1 billion. Yep.
Do you feel like more deal making's on the horizon? is the company kind of in acquisition mode?
I wouldn't say we're in acquisition mode. I do think that, there might be opportunities in times like these. There are opportunities out there. And, if anything, Anthony Notice had, a lot of experience, in his days at Goldman and other places in doing deals. And I think he has an appreciation for when the opportunity is there. And I think as a company, the confidence in taking a step like acquiring Galileo.
Forgot when you have a former tech banker as your CEO, it usually changes the lens a little bit. But no, it does seem across many industries, you're seeing, the strong kind of get stronger and take advantage of the opportunities. How do you think, I think there are many people kind of listening who maybe aren't in the weeds of fintech, but closely paying attention, to a lot of these companies and maybe more themselves taking advantage of the products. What do you think 2 years will look like? I mean, how different will this landscape seem?
I think the landscape has the potential to be pretty dramatically different. Anytime that we see a dramatic shift in consumer behavior, the way we have over the last few months, really challenges all the participants in an industry to step up their game, right? Because the consumer is now waiting on you. And so if anything, I think we're in the annual planning process this time of year. I'm sure many companies are in taking a look at those 5-year plans and really revisiting them to say, are we pushing hard enough? Are we investing in the right places? Because the opportunity is there.
Mm-hmm. What are some, without giving away the playbook, I mean, where are some areas that you'd like to make more investment in the months and years ahead?
Well, certainly, as my title implies, we are going to launch a credit card product. We just announced the internal beta to employees. I'm super excited about the product. I think it fits really well with SoFi's mission. So I'm looking forward to doing that later this year. And I believe it's differentiated in the market. Beyond that, as I said, the structural change to invest, if you take away interest rate changes, if you take away COVID, I still believe that, SoFi is focused on long-term investors. As I said, our core customer is that young professional. They're looking for how to invest over the long term, and we want to be their platform of choice to do that. And we believe that, these structural changes will be a tailwind for us. For years to come. And so that's certainly an area that I hope, to continue investing in a big way.
What are the barriers to adoption now, right? Those customers that you aren't quite yet getting, what's standing in the way?
Well, there's still, I would say, a decent percentage of adults in the country that are looking for that kind of trust they get from walking into a physical branch bank. And again, I liken this to the early days of e-commerce. If I order something online, will it show up at my door? I don't know. And there was some risk taking there, or perceived risk taking. And there are similar pockets of the population that feel that way with regard to a physical bank experience versus digital.
Are we going to see pop-up fintech locations?
I and the team are very focused on winning member trust every day. And I'm a big believer in building trust with every transaction. And so, who knows about pop-ups? I will never speculate or take it off the list, but I think there's more work to be done closer to home first.
Yep. Excellent. And then just one, and soon we'll turn it over to our attendees for some great questions as well. I'm curious that didn't realize that you had all of a few days in the office in the new job. Certainly that's just such a transition. What else jumps out at you from going from a place like Amazon to, I don't want to say SoFi's not a startup, but much earlier in its lifespan. Curious what jumps out at you.
The change has been so invigorating, even all on Zoom. If anything, I live in Seattle, and so I was planning on being remote for part of the time. I really appreciated that SoFi already had members of the senior leadership team on a remote basis, and that was encouraging to me. Now, not a concern whatsoever. I think it's incredibly exciting to see just how that impacts companies' ability to attract and retain talent when you take some of the location factors out of the mix. I think certainly for working women, a big part of in looking at other opportunities beyond Amazon was I want to stay in Seattle, right? And how do you put those elements of personal requirements together with where you want to drive your career? So for me, it's it's wonderful to get to understand a new space, to see a different leadership style, and understand the dynamics of a company. I would say that it's probably taken me longer. You're on the on-ramp for a bit longer than I think I normally would be. Especially interesting to see just the level of energy and excitement in a smaller company too. That I think has been really invigorating as well.
Wonderful. Well, it's I won't say trial by fire because things are going well, but it seems like it's always fun to join something new when you've got a big tailwind behind you. So Maria, thank you for answering my questions. And now we'll turn it over to attendees to ask theirs.
Maria, thank you for being with us for the Q&A and for that awesome session. So the questions are filling up, and let's start with a question you probably get often. But what was it like being Jeff Bezos's technical advisor, one of very few women ever in that role?
Thanks. It's great to be back today for Q&A. Yes, I was the first woman in that role back in 2013 to 2015. It was an incredible experience. I take it as a big investment in my development professionally. I would like to think that it made me better prepared for my role today at SoFi. Certainly seeing that type of breadth and his perspective on the Amazon business, most of my experience at Amazon had been within retail. And then to be on a daily basis thinking deeply about whole new problem spaces like AWS and devices and new and emerging technologies was a great education. What I took away from him, personally in terms of two learnings that I revisit are one, just that he is the definition, I think, of lifelong learning. It's this incredible combination of high curiosity and nimble intellect that is truly inspiring. The older I get, kind of to try and really, hold on to that spirit of curiosity and where that leads you. And then secondly, just the prioritization of time and how to make room and ensure you're making room in our jobs and our lives for the things that really bring you joy, because that's what allows you to be productive and to stay involved and to be happy and joyful in what you do. Because so much as in organizations and life, there's so many demands that if you let them take over and you quickly find you're in a place where you're not joyful. And so how do you make those tough calls, really understand where you add value, and then where you like to add value.
And for those of you who aren't familiar, so this is essentially like you're shadowing him, right? For a period of time, you're in every meeting, you're taking meetings for him. I probably should have explained it first.
Oh, sorry. Yes, it is. The title is technical advisor. It functions as a chief of staff role. You spend your days with Jeff Bezos in all of the meetings that he takes throughout the day. And it is about, it's an investment in your career. It's also about how you ensure that he's using his time strategically and that you're working across the organization with senior leaders so that they are tracking along with him and kind of decisions that are made and where his head is at the moment.
Yeah. I'm thinking one day it'd be nice to have one of those, but ways to go. We have a great question here. Also back in your time at Amazon, how did you think about investing in certain areas like customer experience where the ROI wasn't proven yet?
Well, customer experience is one where you can, for most part, most of it is measurable. An example would be speed of shipping. And you can run a lot of experiments on, clicks and conversion based on messages that you're serving up around speed of delivery. I would say most of it is measurable. The 10% or so that isn't, I think that's where you have to, as a leader, have conviction. That's where kind of the magic happens in terms of innovating on behalf of customers. And you can take a leap of faith. I think over time, you're always challenging yourself and the team to measure what that impact is. But that's where I would say judgment comes into play.
Yeah. Question from Marissa. What do you think about the proliferation of services like Afterpay, Klarna, Affirm? How will this change e-commerce? And is there a big risk to consumers who use these services, perhaps younger shoppers?
Well, I think anytime you offer more options, and those are all payment options, you're going to increase conversion. These are new within the United States, but many of these options have long been popular in other parts of the world. They're still regulated. And with any type of payment option, I think the key there is transparency to consumers. And how are they being presented? And are they being presented in a way where consumers are aware of the choice that they're making? But I'm excited to see its creativity and its innovation, and I think it's exciting development.
You sit across tech and I guess also the finance industry, not also, I guess, definitely, neither of which are kind of known for their diversity. We have a question here just about, given the scarcity of female execs in fintech and finance, curious with your thoughts on today's news that Jane Fraser will be Citi's new CEO.
I think it's fabulous news. I read a headline that the Fortune 500 right now has a record number of female CEOs. And I think any female taking a CEO post is inspiration to all of us. And so kudos to Jane. And it's wonderful news.
We talked in our earlier conversation around how you're seeing the pandemic affect just consumer spending and saving and all of that. I'm curious how it's affecting SoFi's business as a company.
Yeah. As I mentioned, SoFi is an online personal finance company. Anthony Noto, who is the CEO formerly of Twitter, came on board 2 years ago and really since joining the organization has been preparing for a financial downturn. Not that any of us could have predicted what the catalyst would be, but fortunately from a balance sheet perspective, the company had raised $500 million in a year ago May, and so was very well funded. We had a very secure balance sheet, which was good news to me in evaluating SoFi as the next place that I wanted to come innovate. Kind of scrubbing the balance sheet may have not been at the very top of the list that it may have been today if I were talking with the company. And so the business has been strong. We were able to make that acquisition because we had a good balance sheet. We had also undertaken within loans, thinking really about quantity over quality. And so have been in really good shape. The heartening piece to that is it allowed us as a team the bandwidth through this COVID to focus on our customers. So for example, within investing, we put together a couple curated collections of ETFs, one being more safe harbor in stocks that perform well during market volatility, another collection of ETFs around rainy day funds, and that's bond ETFs that have low yield relative to other stocks, but a great option when you're building rainy day funds. We were able to focus then on forbearance programs within loans. We just did a promotion with Kelly and Ryan on how we allow frontline workers to pay off their school loans and a sweepstakes there. And so it's been really comforting to see the business be solid through this turbulence. It certainly heightens all of our awareness when we do, as businesses once a year, you sit back and look at your risk assessment. And we've just done our 5-year plan and what does that look like? I think all of us across organizations may pay a little bit more attention to risk assessment, right? And thinking about what could really go wrong. COVID was kind of on one end of the spectrum of, I don't think anyone would have predicted, all of business or the majority of business being completely shut down for an extended period of time. So it definitely changes our outlook, but it was great to see that the right preparations had been made.
Yep. Yeah, it was interesting when Julia Hartz of Eventbrite was speaking yesterday about risk assessment. It's just like, what if your freedom to assemble is taken away? I mean, it's hard. The contingencies are really across the board. What about an IPO? I mean, in just terms of thinking about, I know you're not probably going to announce SoFi's plans today, but we're just seeing, incredible. A lot of activity in the sort of IPO markets. And what's your reaction to that? Does that seem attractive, given capital is king?
I don't have a comment on that as it relates to SoFi. There are a number of companies, obviously, that are considering IPOs, and it'll be great and interesting to see, what the environment is this fall.
Another question, just more about your transition from Amazon to SoFi. What jumped out at you? What has struck you? What has been challenging? What have you think? What have you brought from Amazon to SoFi? And again, you're just in it, but maybe for that reason.
Well, COVID certainly changes, I think, my on-ramp timeline, right? Being remote for the majority of the time, I felt, personally slower. I felt that I think the transition more. I feel like I'm just getting to the point where I'm back up and running. If it's an on-ramp to the highway, I'm kind of just getting onto the highway, where what I would have expected to be there sooner. That said, having a pandemic going on and lots of, detailed conversations across the leadership team was incredibly educational, and very revealing about who does what and the way we think about the business. And so that was helpful in a way to be able to be involved in those conversations, and listen and learn. The transition for me, it's back to building in a more direct way. I've built many of the retail categories at Amazon. I've seen, been at the different levels of leadership as the business had evolved. And so for me, SoFi is that place in building where I love to be. There's product market fit. It's starting to scale, but there are lots of questions still on how the team wants to organize, how we're investing our capital, what we believe will be the twists and turns coming up as consumers adopt technology within a sector. And so that I recognize a lot of the conversations. It takes me back a few years. Some things are a good surprise, and other things you go, oh, wow, yeah, there's that. I forgot about that. There's unpleasantness in building. There's a lot more ambiguity. It kind of plays with the emotional spectrum you have around work and day to day, how you feel about the job you're doing, and if you're giving to the team what they need to do. And so it's been a great reminder and very invigorating.
There are times when I think, it'd be great to go back to year whatever and just do that part again. And so I think it can be, is an awesome opportunity, and we're very excited to see what you continue to build at SoFi. So Maria, thank you for joining us at WTF.